There is a place within you where the world grows quiet, where the noise of your worries dissolves, where the momentum of your thoughts loses its grip, and in that stillness something extraordinary begins to emerge. It is not a sound in the ordinary sense. It is not a voice that competes with the chaos around you. It is a whisper felt, rather than heard, a knowing that rises without effort, a presence that does not demand attention but invites it gently. This is the place where God speaks. Not through thunder, not through lightning, not through grand gestures or dramatic moments, but through silence, through the subtle space between your breaths, through the stretch of stillness that always exists beneath the surface of your mind, waiting for you to notice it. To listen with your heart means to shift your awareness from the reactive noise of the mind to the receptive openness of the soul. When you listen with your heart, you are not trying to figure anything out. You are not chasing answers, you are allowing them. You are not forcing direction. You are receiving guidance. There is nothing you need to push, nothing you need to demand. The heart knows how to listen because it listens not with logic, but with presence. It listens not with tension, but with trust. And when you learn to live in that space, you discover that God has been speaking to you all along. You simply had to grow quiet enough to hear. Many people believe that divine communication must be dramatic, that it must shake the earth or part the skies in order to be real. But the divine rarely shouts. It whispers. It nudges. It gently redirects. It sends you subtle signs, gentle impulses, sudden clarity, unexpected calm, and intuitive knowing that bypasses the mind entirely. The divine speaks in coincidence that feels too perfect to ignore, in opportunities that seem to arise exactly when needed, in people who cross your path at precisely the right time. But to recognize these moments, you must be attuned to the quietness within. You must step out of the noise long enough to feel the truth beneath your feet. This silence is not empty. It is full of intelligence, full of wisdom, full of guidance that is constantly available to you. The reason most people do not hear it is not because it isn't speaking, but because they are too busy listening to their fears. Fear is loud, fear is dramatic, fear demands attention. Fear shouts, "What if?" And you can't, and be careful. But silence, true silence, holds none of that. Silence simply waits. Silence reminds you that you are safe, that you are connected, that you are guided, that you are supported by something far greater than anything that frightens you. When you listen with your heart, fear loses its influence. You begin to trust the quiet more than the noise. Listening with your heart is not a passive act, it is a powerful spiritual alignment. It is the moment you decide that your inner world matters more than the outer world's chaos. It is the moment you choose to center yourself in calm rather than confusion. And from that choice, your life begins to shift in ways that appear miraculous. You start noticing insights that were always there but previously drowned out. You start feeling clarity about decisions that once felt impossible to make. You start experiencing synchronicities that remind you that you are being led, not left to figure everything out on your own. To listen with your heart, you must be willing to surrender the belief that life must always be controlled. Control is a function of the mind. Listening is a function of the soul. The mind wants plans, the heart wants presence. The mind wants certainty, the heart wants connection. The mind wants to know the outcome, the heart wants to trust the path. When you choose the heart's way, you are choosing to align with the rhythm of the universe rather than fighting against it. You begin to notice that the same intelligence that spins the planets and orchestrates the seasons is also orchestrating the details of your life. Silence is the doorway to this awareness. When you enter that doorway, you discover that silence is not the absence of communication, but the most profound language of all. Silence is where the divine speaks truths that words could never carry. Silence is where inspiration is born, where intuition awakens, where clarity emerges without effort. It is in silence that you reconnect with who you truly are, beyond the identity the world has constructed for you. In silence, you feel your original essence, pure, peaceful, connected, limitless. Yet many people fear silence because they have never learned how to enter it. They believe silence means loneliness or emptiness or boredom, but silence is none of these things. Silence is companionship with the divine. Silence is communion with your highest self. Silence is a sanctuary where everything false falls away, leaving only truth. If you can learn to sit with silence, even for a few moments each day, you will begin to feel God speaking through the spaces you once filled with worry. Sometimes, the divine message arrives as a gentle reassurance that everything will be okay. Sometimes, it comes as a burst of inspiration pointing you toward your next step. Sometimes it arises as a sense of peace that washes over you without explanation. And sometimes it comes as a feeling so deep, so resonant, that you recognize instantly that it is not coming from your mind but from a higher source. These moments are not random. They are reminders. They are invitations. They are the divine saying, I am here, trust me. Trust the wisdom that speaks without sound. When you listen with your heart, you stop trying to decode every detail of your life and instead begin to feel your way forward. Your heart becomes your compass. You begin to sense what aligns with you and what does not. You begin to recognize which choices bring expansion and which bring contraction. You begin to trust your inner signals more than outside opinions. And as you follow this guidance, life begins to unfold with more ease, more grace, and more flow. You realize that the guidance you seek is already within you. It always has been. The world teaches you to look outward for answers, to seek validation, to seek direction, to seek reassurance. But the divine asks you to turn inward. The answer to every question you hold is already waiting inside your quietest place. It is waiting for you to pause long enough to access it. When you sit in silence, you do not need to beg for answers. You simply open yourself to receiving them. They arrive not through force, but through surrender, not through effort, but through allowance. There is a sacred intelligence guiding your life, an intelligence that never rushes, never pushes, never pressures. It communicates gently, patiently, consistently. It guides through feeling, through intuition, through inner knowing. This guidance is always loving. It never frightens, it never condemns, it never shames. It only reminds you of who you really are and gently nudges you back into alignment with that truth. To hear this guidance, you must listen with your heart, not your fear. The mind often interrupts this process with judgment, doubt, and distraction. It tries to interpret divine messages through the lens of past experiences, worries, and expectations. But the heart interprets everything through love. Where the mind sees problems, the heart sees possibilities. Where the mind sees limitations, the heart sees potential. Where the mind sees confusion, the heart sees clarity. And when you tune into the heart's frequency, you begin to see your life through a lens that aligns with the divine itself. Listening with your heart is an act of faith. It is choosing to trust what you feel, even when you cannot yet see the evidence. It is choosing to believe that the quiet nudge you sense is guiding you toward something meaningful. It is choosing to follow the gentle pull of inspiration, even when the path ahead is not fully revealed. Faith is not blind belief. Faith is inner knowing. It is the recognition that the source that created you continues to guide you. It is the willingness to let the divine lead through the language of silence. You have likely felt this language many times. Perhaps you felt it in a moment of stillness when everything suddenly made sense. Perhaps you felt it during a difficult period when an unexpected wave of peace reassured you that you were not alone. Perhaps you felt it when a decision that seemed complicated suddenly became clear after you took a quiet moment to breathe. These are not coincidences. These are conversations with the divine that occur in the silence beneath your thoughts. And the more you listen, the more you recognize the difference between the voice of fear and the voice of the divine. Fear is restless, the divine is steady. Fear is urgent, the divine is calm. Fear is loud, the divine is quiet. Fear limits, the divine liberates. And when you begin to distinguish these voices, your life becomes guided by a wisdom that far surpasses anything the mind could ever calculate. You may wonder how to begin listening more deeply. The answer is simple. Create space. Create space in your day for stillness. Create space in your mind for quiet. Create space in your heart for connection. Even a few moments of silence can open the doorway to divine guidance. Sit with your breath, feel your own presence, soften your body, release your thoughts, and allow the quiet to expand inside you. The divine will always meet you there. And as you create this space, you will begin to notice that silence is not something you enter, it is something you return to. It has always been there, beneath every thought, beneath every emotion, beneath every layer of your identity. Silence is your original home. It is the space you came from and the space you return to every time you let go of the noise. When you reconnect with this place, you reconnect with the divine essence that animates your life. Reconnect with the presence that breathes you, moves you, guides you, loves you without condition. In this space, you rediscover that you were never truly separate from God. You were simply distracted from the connection. The heart has always been the bridge between your humanity and your divinity. When you listen with your heart, you step onto that bridge and begin crossing into a deeper awareness of who you are. You begin to sense that every challenge you face carries a message. Every loss carries a lesson. Every delay carries protection. And every moment carries an opportunity for alignment. The divine speaks through every circumstance, through every experience, through every season of your life. Even the moments that seem silent are filled with guidance. But only the heart can recognize these messages. The mind looks for logic, the heart feels the truth. There are times in life when silence becomes your greatest teacher, when answers refuse to come quickly, when solutions hide themselves, when clarity seems to slip through your fingers. It is often because you are being invited into deeper stillness. These moments are not punishment, they are preparation. They are shaping you, cleansing you, softening you, bringing you into greater alignment with your soul's truth. Silence in these seasons is not absence, it is transformation in progress. When you lean into silence, rather than resist it, you allow the divine to rearrange your inner world in a way that prepares you for the next chapter of your outer world. It is often tempting to rush through these quiet seasons, to seek any noise that can distract you from discomfort or uncertainty. But growth is rarely loud, healing is rarely loud, awakening is rarely loud. The soul expands in stillness, not chaos. The heart reveals truth in quiet, not confusion. If you can learn to embrace silence instead of escaping it, you will discover that silence is not an empty waiting room. It is a sacred sanctuary where the next version of you is being formed. Listening with your heart means trusting that even in silence, you are being guided. It means understanding that divine timing is not always aligned with your impatience, but always aligned with your highest good. The heart knows that the universe never withholds anything from you, it only prepares you to receive it. When you sit in silence and listen deeply, you begin to see delays not as denials, but as divine orchestration. You begin to feel that every moment of waiting is an opportunity to strengthen your connection to the guidance within. The more you listen with your heart, the more you become aware that guidance is not always directional. Sometimes it is transformational. Sometimes the divine is not telling you where to go, but who to become. Sometimes the silence is not pointing you toward a path, but prompting you to release a pattern. Sometimes the message is not about taking action, but about expanding your awareness. And as you shift internally, the external path begins to reveal itself without strain. Your inner world is always speaking, but it speaks most clearly when it speaks softly. It speaks through intuition, through instinct, through subtle energy changes in your body, through feelings that rise gently and persist even when you try to ignore them. These are not random emotions, these are divine signals. When your heart tightens, it is often a sign that something is out of alignment. When your heart expands, it is often a sign that you are moving closer to your truth. The heart communicates through sensations that cannot be forced or fabricated. They arise naturally from your connection to the divine. Listening with your heart means honoring these sensations even when they don't make immediate sense. The mind may question, but the heart feels. The mind wants evidence, but the heart knows. And when you choose to trust what you feel more than what you fear, you become aligned with a wisdom far greater than anything the mind can calculate. You begin to walk a path illuminated not by the world's expectations, but by the divine's gentle whisper. There will be moments in your life when the divine guidance you receive contradicts logic, contradicts your plans, contradicts the advice of others. Yet deep within, you will feel an unmistakable pull, a quiet certainty that refuses to fade. This is the moment when listening with your heart becomes an act of courage, because the heart will often lead you away from what is familiar and toward what is true. It will lead you away from comfort and toward authenticity. It will lead you away from fear's illusion of safety and toward love's reality of purpose. The heart does not operate on the same timeline as the mind. It does not rush. It does not panic. It does not fixate on outcomes. It simply guides you step by step, moment by moment, breath by breath. Listening with your heart requires you to slow down long enough to feel the next step, rather than force the next step. It requires you to trust that clarity will appear exactly when you need it, not a moment sooner, and never a moment too late. As you deepen your relationship with silence, you will begin to experience moments of profound stillness, moments when the noise of the world seems to fall away completely, leaving only a presence that feels both expansive and intimate. In these moments, you may feel a warmth in your chest, a sense of being held, a wave of peace that feels inexplicably familiar. These moments are glimpses of the divine. They are reminders that you are connected to something infinite, something loving, something wise beyond measure. You do not need to seek God outside yourself. You only need to listen within. Every time you choose silence over noise, presence over distraction, alignment over urgency, you strengthen this connection. You become more attuned to the subtle guidance that is always being offered. You begin to notice the way life responds to your inner state, the way clarity appears when you are calm, opportunities appear when you are aligned, and solutions appear when you are centered. Listening with your heart is not just a spiritual practice, it is a way of living in harmony with the deepest truth of your being. When you listen with your heart, you learn that God does not always answer your questions directly. Instead, God often answers with peace. When something is right for you, you feel an undeniable sense of ease. When something is not aligned, you feel resistance or heaviness. These feelings are not random. They are divine communication. The heart translates these signals into guidance that the mind can follow. But it takes practice to distinguish between fear-based resistance and intuition-based resistance. Fear restricts, intuition redirects. Fear tenses, intuition softens. Fear closes, intuition opens. As you spend more time in silence, the difference becomes clearer. One of the most profound revelations that comes from listening with your heart is recognizing that you are never alone. Even in moments when you feel isolated, confused, or uncertain, there is a presence within you that remains steady, loving, and unwavering. This presence is not separate from you. It is your essence. It is the divine expressing through you. When you sit in silence, you remember this truth. You remember that you are supported by a force that is always working in your favor, always guiding you back to alignment, always whispering the next step the moment you are ready to take it. Listening with your heart often leads you to make choices that honor your soul rather than your fears. It guides you toward people who nourish your spirit, opportunities that align with your purpose, and paths that deepen your connection with the divine. These choices may not always make sense from the outside, but they always feel right on the inside. They expand you. They strengthen you. They awaken parts of you that were waiting for expression. Sometimes the divine speaks by removing what is no longer aligned with your growth. Relationships fade, jobs shift, plans dissolve, situations transform. At first, this can feel painful or confusing. But when you listen with your heart, you begin to see that these changes are not losses. They are redirections. They are the universe clearing space for something greater, something truer, something more aligned with your soul's path. What leaves your life is often what was limiting you. What arrives is what will elevate you. Silence helps you understand this without resistance. Listening with your heart is ultimately an act of surrender. It is surrendering your grip on how you think life should unfold and allowing the divine to show you how life is meant to unfold. It is surrendering your attachment to outcomes and trusting the intelligence guiding every moment. It is surrendering the noise of your mind so you can hear the clarity of your soul. This surrender is not weakness, it is the greatest strength you can embody. Because when you surrender, you allow the divine to work through you, speak through you, guide you, and elevate you. The more you practice listening with your heart, the more you realize that the divine voice never competes with the world. It simply waits for you to become quiet enough to hear it. It waits with infinite patience, infinite compassion, infinite love. It never rushes you, never judges you, never abandons you. It simply waits. And the moment you turn inward, the moment you become still, the moment you listen, it responds instantly. Not always with words, but always with presence. And in this presence, you discover what it means to truly hear God, not as a distant figure speaking from above, but as a living presence speaking from within, not as an external authority, but as the deepest truth of your own being. When you listen with your heart, you realize that the divine voice and your true self are not two separate things, they are one. And in this realization, life becomes less of a struggle and more of a flow, less of a search and more of a remembering. As you deepen into this understanding, you begin to trust yourself in a way you never have before. You begin to trust your inner nudges, the subtle pulls that guide you toward what feels right even when you cannot explain it. You begin to trust the timing of your life, the pauses, the delays, the redirections. You begin to trust that everything unfolding around you is part of a larger, loving orchestration. And this trust does not come from the mind, it arises from the heart. The heart knows what the mind takes years to understand. The heart recognizes truth instantly. Because the heart is the bridge between your human experience and your divine essence. As you listen with your heart, you notice that life becomes less about striving and more about allowing, less about forcing and more about flowing. You stop trying to impose your timeline on the universe and instead begin to dance with divine timing. You stop pushing against doors that refuse to open and start noticing the ones opening effortlessly. You stop exhausting yourself with mental effort and begin to move through life with spiritual ease. Listening with your heart transforms the way you walk through the world, because you no longer walk alone. You walk in partnership with the divine. And as this remembrance grows deeper, you begin to realize that listening with your heart is not a technique but a way of being. It is a posture of openness, a willingness to surrender your agenda, a readiness to hear what the divine has been whispering all along. This way of being shifts the way you interact with life. You stop trying to control outcomes and start inviting alignment. You stop forcing solutions and start allowing clarity. You stop rushing toward answers and start resting in trust. Listening with your heart becomes the foundation upon which your entire life unfolds. When you allow this shift to occur, you begin to see the world through gentler eyes. Everything softens. The way you interpret challenges, the way you respond to stress, the way you navigate uncertainty. You stop viewing obstacles as threats and start seeing them as teachers. You stop seeing silence as emptiness and begin recognizing it as a sacred space of transformation. You stop fearing the unknown and start welcoming the possibilities it contains. This is the power of the heart. It transforms not only what you see, but how you see. In moments of silence, profound wisdom emerges. Wisdom you may have overlooked in the noise. You begin to recognize patterns in your life that were previously invisible. You notice the moments when you ignored your intuition and the consequences that followed. You notice the times you listened to your heart and how effortlessly life aligned around you. This awareness is not meant to criticize you, but to awaken you. It is meant to show you that the divine has always been guiding you, even when you were unaware. Listening with your heart also teaches you that guidance does not always come as a voice or a message. Sometimes guidance comes as a shift in energy. You may feel drawn toward a certain place without knowing why. You may feel compelled to let go of something that once felt important. You may feel a sudden sense of peace that releases all urgency. These subtle shifts are just as sacred as clear instructions. They are the language of the divine, the quiet language that speaks through feeling rather than words. As you become more attuned to these shifts, you start trusting them more. You trust that the gentle pull you feel toward a new beginning is not random. You trust that the heaviness you feel around a certain situation is a sign to release it. You trust that the excitement bubbling in your chest is urging you toward a path that aligns with your soul. And each time you trust, you strengthen the connection between your heart and the divine guidance flowing through it. Listening with your heart also requires patience, a patience that honors your own timing as much as divine timing. The heart does not rush transformation. It allows it to unfold naturally, like a flower opening to the morning sun. When you listen with your heart, you understand that growth happens in cycles. There are seasons of expansion and seasons of introspection, seasons of movement and seasons of stillness, seasons of clarity and seasons of uncertainty. Each season is necessary. Each season carries wisdom. Each season prepares you for the next. When you embrace these seasons, you stop resisting the natural flow of your life. You stop trying to force expansion in seasons meant for stillness. You stop clinging to comfort in seasons meant for growth. You stop running from silence in seasons meant for deep listening. Instead, you settle into the rhythm of your soul's journey, trusting that each season is beautifully timed. Listening with your heart means honoring this rhythm without judgment. There will be moments when the silence feels uncomfortable, even overwhelming. You may feel restless, unsure, or tempted to fill the space with distractions. This discomfort is natural, because silence reveals what noise hides. In silence, you come face to face with your deepest fears, unresolved emotions, and unhealed patterns. But this is not meant to discourage you. It is meant to free you. When you sit with these emotions, rather than escape them, they begin to dissolve. When you listen to what they are trying to teach you, you begin to heal. Silence becomes a mirror, showing you the truth you need to see. And within that truth, you rediscover your strength, the quiet strength that has always been part of you. You realize that your heart has carried you through every challenge, every heartbreak, every transition. You recognize that the divine has walked beside you in every moment, even when you felt alone. You understand that every chapter of your life, no matter how difficult, has been preparing you to hear the divine more clearly. Listening with your heart becomes not just a practice, but a celebration of your resilience, your growth, your awakening. The more you anchor yourself in this inner silence, the more clearly you hear the divine speaking through the world around you. You begin to notice signs, gentle synchronicities that meet you at the perfect moment, a word you needed to hear, a message you stumble upon unexpectedly, a person who arrives just when you are ready for the next step. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. They are reminders that the divine is orchestrating your journey with exquisite precision. Listening with your heart allows you to recognize these reminders and follow the path they illuminate. You may also begin to notice that your desires shift. What once appealed to your ego no longer satisfies your soul. What once felt important begins to fade in comparison to what feels meaningful. You feel called to express yourself more authentically, to live more truthfully, to speak more lovingly, to give more generously. These shifts are not forced, they arise effortlessly as you listen more deeply. The heart guides you toward a life that aligns with your highest essence. In this alignment, you begin to experience a profound inner peace, a peace that does not depend on circumstances, outcomes, or approval. It is a peace that arises from knowing you are connected to something eternal. It is a peace that comes from trusting your path even when you cannot see the next step. It is a peace that grows stronger each time you choose silence over fear, presence over distraction, faith over doubt. With this peace guiding you, you interact differently with challenges. Instead of reacting, you respond. Instead of panicking, you breathe. Instead of resisting, you observe. You begin to see challenges not as obstacles but as invitations, opportunities to listen more deeply, to expand more fully, to awaken more completely. Each challenge becomes an initiation into a higher level of awareness, Each moment of confusion becomes an invitation to clarity. Each moment of struggle becomes a doorway to strength. Listening with your heart also influences your creativity. Ideas begin to flow more naturally. Inspiration rises from within rather than being forced. You become a channel for creativity that feels guided, purposeful, and alive. Whether you are creating art, building a dream, nurturing a relationship, or pursuing a calling, your creativity becomes infused with divine energy. It feels effortless because it is aligned. It feels authentic because it is guided by the heart, not by external expectations. As you continue to practice listening, you may notice that the boundaries between your spiritual life and your daily life begin to disappear. The sacred becomes part of the ordinary. Conversations become meaningful. Tasks become meditative. Moments become holy. You begin to see God not only in silence but in everything. In a smile, in a sunrise, in a challenge, in a gesture, in your own breath. Listening with your heart reveals that the divine is not confined to sacred places. The divine is woven into the fabric of your everyday existence. You may also notice that you become more present, fully present in each moment. The mind no longer drags you into the past or pulls you into the future. The heart anchors you in the now, and the now becomes vibrant, alive, rich with depth and meaning. When you listen with your heart, you are no longer living life, you are experiencing it, you are feeling it, you are connected to it. And in this connection, life becomes fuller, more vivid, more miraculous. Even in difficult moments of loss, grief, uncertainty, or transition, you find yourself returning to the silence within. You discover that silence becomes a refuge, a place where healing flows effortlessly. You learn to breathe through pain, to surrender your fears, to trust that the divine is holding you even when life feels heavy. The heart becomes your anchor, grounding you in love and reminding you that every storm eventually passes. And each storm leaves you stronger, wiser, more open, more compassionate. Listening with your heart ultimately leads you to a deeper understanding of love. Love not as an emotion, but as the essence of your existence. You realize that love is the frequency of the divine, the language of the soul, the foundation of all creation. When you listen with your heart, you align yourself with this frequency. You become an expression of love in every interaction, every choice, every breath. And this love shapes your life in ways you could never have imagined. As you continue to walk this path, you begin to understand that listening with your heart is not something you do. It is something you become. You become a listener of divine truth. You become a vessel of divine love. You become a reflection of divine wisdom. You become a living expression of the silence where God speaks. This partnership is not one you have to earn. It is your birthright. From the moment you took your first breath, you were connected to a source of wisdom that is timeless, infinite, and unconditionally loving. But as life unfolded, the noise of the world may have dimmed that connection. Expectations, fears, disappointments, and distractions may have clouded your ability to hear the quiet guidance within. Yet the connection was never lost. It simply waited for you to return to it. And every moment of silence is an invitation to return. There is a profound serenity that emerges when you choose to listen rather than react, to be still rather than rush, to trust rather than worry. This serenity is not passivity, it is alignment. It is a powerful state of inner clarity that allows you to act from a place of wisdom rather than fear. When you listen with your heart, you act with intention, not impulsiveness. You speak with compassion, not defensiveness. You move with purpose, not pressure. The world around you may still carry chaos, but the world within you becomes a sanctuary of stability. The more you cultivate this sanctuary, the more sensitive you become to the divine signals woven into your life. You begin to sense when something is meant for you long before it arrives. You begin to feel when something is out of alignment long before it becomes obvious. You begin to detect subtle shifts in energy that guide you away from what drains you and toward what nourishes you. These shifts are not random. They are the language of the heart. And when you listen, your life becomes guided by an intelligence that sees far beyond what your eyes can perceive. Many people search desperately for answers, hoping the world will offer them clarity. But answers do not live in the world. They live within the silent spaces of your soul. The world can only reflect your inner state, never define it. When you search externally, you chase illusions. When you listen internally, you awaken truth. This is why silence is so essential. Because silence is where truth rises without resistance. Silence is where clarity blooms without effort. Silence is where you come into direct contact with the wisdom that has always been yours. Listening with your heart requires you to slow down long enough to feel your feelings without judgment. The heart speaks through emotion, not the chaotic emotions of fear or insecurity, but the deeper emotions of guidance, peace, resonance, expansion, inner knowing. When something aligns with your soul, you feel yourself open. When something is misaligned, you feel yourself contract. These sensations are divine communication. They are the compass guiding you toward your highest path. When you ignore them, you drift. When you trust them, you align. This is why the heart is so important. It cannot be manipulated by logic or influenced by fear. It speaks only truth, it speaks only love, it speaks only what aligns with the deepest core of who you are. Listening with your heart means allowing this truth to lead your life. It means allowing love, not fear, to make your decisions. It means allowing divine wisdom, not societal noise, to shape your path. It means allowing your soul, not your ego, to guide your steps. There will be times when the guidance you receive challenges your comfort. The heart may ask you to walk away from situations that no longer nourish you. It may nudge you toward paths you feel unprepared for. It may call you to release attachments, let go of control, or step into new experiences that require faith. Listening with your heart means trusting these nudges even when they stretch you. Because the heart never leads you toward harm. It leads you toward growth, expansion, and alignment with your highest truth. And when you follow this guidance, you will look back one day and realize that every step made perfect sense. Every uncertainty, every pause, every shift, every redirection, all of it was part of the divine map unfolding within you. The heart is the compass that reads this map, and silence is where you learn to read the compass clearly. The more you quiet your mind, the louder the heart speaks. The more you soften your resistance, the clearer the path becomes. Some of the most profound spiritual awakenings occur not in moments of dramatic change, but in moments of quiet realization. You may suddenly see a situation differently. You may suddenly release a fear that once paralyzed you. You may suddenly feel gratitude for something you used to overlook. These shifts may seem subtle, but they carry tremendous spiritual significance. They are signs that you are listening deeply, that you are aligning with the divine, that you are awakening to your highest self. Listening with your heart transforms your relationships as well. You begin to hear others beyond their words. You sense their intentions, their emotions, their unspoken truths. You become more compassionate, more present, more patient. You respond to others not from ego but from empathy. You speak not to be heard but to connect. This transformation creates deeper relationships, stronger bonds, and greater harmony. When you listen with your heart, you communicate from your soul. And souls understand one another far better than minds ever can. Your relationship with yourself deepens as well. The inner critic grows quieter. The inner wisdom grows louder. You begin to treat yourself with more kindness, more acceptance, more understanding. You stop demanding perfection and begin embracing authenticity. You stop seeking validation and begin trusting your worth. You stop comparing your journey and begin honoring your path. Listening with your heart teaches you how to love yourself, not as a concept, but as a lived truth. And this love is not selfish. It is sacred. When you love yourself from the heart, you become a vessel of divine love for the world. You radiate presence. You uplift others effortlessly. You inspire without trying. You heal simply by being aligned. Because the heart aligned with the divine becomes a source of light, and light naturally illuminates whatever it touches. Listening with your heart is not just a personal practice, It is a gift you offer the world through the energy you carry. When you walk through life guided by the heart, you begin to see divine messages everywhere. In the gentle shift of the wind, in the unexpected moment of clarity, in the person you meet at the perfect time, in the quiet feeling that something beautiful is approaching, in the synchronicities that seem too meaningful to ignore, life becomes a conversation with the divine. Every moment carries guidance. Every experience carries wisdom. Every breath carries presence. But to receive these messages, you must be willing to enter the silence where they form. Silence is not a break from life. Silence is the foundation of life. It is in silence that ideas are born, that creativity awakens, that solutions arise effortlessly. It is in silence that the divine whispers the next step, and the more you practice entering this silence, the more natural it becomes. What once felt like a struggle becomes a sanctuary. What once felt like emptiness becomes fullness. What once felt like nothing becomes everything. Listening with your heart is not something you master in one moment. It is a lifelong relationship. Some days the guidance feels clear. Some days it feels faint. Some days the silence feels comforting. Some days it feels challenging. But every day the divine is speaking. And every day your heart has the capacity to hear. The more you return to this practice, the deeper your connection becomes. The more you trust this connection, the more your life transforms from the inside out. And soon you realize that the heart is not just a listener, it is a translator. It translates the language of the divine into the language of human experience. It translates truth into intuition, guidance into feeling, love into action. When you listen with your heart, you become a translator of divine wisdom in your own life. You become a vessel through which the divine expresses itself. You become aligned with your purpose, your calling, your essence. You begin to understand that God does not speak in noise, chaos, or complication. God speaks in simplicity. God speaks in calm. God speaks in the soft, steady frequency of love, and this frequency is always accessible. It is your soul's natural vibration. When you listen with your heart, you return to this frequency. You remember who you are. You remember your connection to the divine. You remember that you are guided, loved, supported, and held at every moment.